too good, is it? I don't think.
Well, no, from back here it is, not where you are.
Oh, really?
Let's try this, because you guys got a hell of a glare, right?
Yeah, we do.
Off my head.
There's always a lot of
Oh,
time.
that's much better.
And it's all Frisch's head.
Give him free your hat.
Joe, don't give Brian a shocker, all right?
I gotta keep it, is that,
That's good.
Put the lights on.
lights on?
Put the lights on.
What's up ahead?
Let's do it like this for the first time. See how-
Okay.
Alright, Tracy. None of the chitter chatter, let's go. Alright, John, all you.
Okay. Hello, my name is Jonathan Smith, and I'm here with Leece, Neville, alternators and starters. I'm going to go through I don't know, about an hour presentation on some of our products. I have some literature to give to, sample literature to give to some of you, and I can also go through some things on the website. I've been with Prestolite Leece, Neville for 15 years. Been in sales for about 4 years, tech service for about 4 years before that, and I actually started in the manufacturing facility. So, have any questions, you know, feel free to roll with them as we're going along. I think that's the best thing to do. We'll go from there. Some of the products, or some of the areas that we sell into, and you know, this will get a little more in depth as we go through some of the products. But you know, class mainly 6, 7, and 8. Transit, emergency vehicles, garbage trucks, school buses, you know, regular class 8 trucks. Our claim to fame is not only high output alternators, but higher output at low RPM, at idle speeds. And we claim better that over the competition. You know, knowledge of complete charging systems. You know, when I worked in tech service, you know, we didn't just, you know, if you had a customer that had an issue, it wasn't just going through the alternator. You know, starting at the alternator, you know, you start at the batteries, you look at the whole system, what are your vehicle loads, you know, and make recommendations from there. You know, we have technical support line. We have you know, online email questions that you can ask. We have a knowledge base on our website, and some of the things I can go through on the website, where a lot of our cross-reference information is on our website. And we are an American-owned company, and the majority of our manufacturing is done in the U.S. It's done in Arcade, New York, which is about an hour south of Buffalo. It's where I live. Alright, reason to sell. Like I said, high output alternators. We have more output at lower speed. Usually, when you look at an alternator, or when you look at a power curve for an alternator, you know, take a 160 amp alternator. 160 amps is what that alternator will do at max output, okay, and that's usually about 6,000 alternator RPM. A truck, usually their pulley to crank ratio is about 3 to 1, okay, so on typical diesel engine, idle is about 650 to 750 RPM. That puts your idle alternator RPM at about 2,000, okay, so whenever you're looking at a power curve chart or anything like that, you know, that's what you got to kind of keep in mind, because there can be some competitive products that come out and say, you know, yep, you know, alternator's this big and it puts out 250 amps. Well, where does it put out that 250 amps? You know, it's probably more in this range, and a lot of vehicles need that at idle, especially your school buses. You know, short delivery vehicles, emergency vehicles, fire trucks. They all sit for long periods of time with all their electrical loads on. Some of the popular alternator families that we have. Start up here, we have our 110 444, and there's other slides for these. But it's basically our 22 SI replacement. And why we have that is because there's some places where only a 22 SI would fit, as far as, you know, size-wise. Some of the engine compartments are pretty constrained. And then we have our 110 555, maybe a product that some of you may have heard about before. It's our 160 amp alternator, designed for heavy trucks. We have a long brush version of that, although it's really
What's the difference between the 555 and the 440?
Size.
Just size.
Well, 444 is 150 amps, the 555 is 160.
Okay.
The 110 555 is a little more output and idle. You're probably looking at about 75, 80 amps for a 444, where you're about 90, 95 amps for a 555. But physical height is a little taller. You know, and there's some applications like you know, where there's just too much stuff around there, where you can only put in a 444. There's also, even though like the J180 mount is a standard SAE mount, there's a Delco standard and there's a Leece Neville standard, which is about maybe a quarter of an inch different. So if it's a fixed J mount where that just comes, kind of goes around the alternator, you're not going to be able to go from a 22 SI to a 555 because it's not going to fit. Okay, and there's not a lot of situations like that, but that is where you would need the, the different units. Okay, price difference isn't a whole lot. I mean, most of the time this is what you're gonna want to sell. And all our units are new, no core. Okay, starters and alternators. We don't do any reman. We don't want the cores back. None of it. Okay, we got rid of the reman program, I would say like 3 years ago. So if there's still remans running out there and they want to know what the core value is through us, 3-year-old Leece Neville reman has no core value for us. We don't want it. And one of the things that's kind of hard to get through to some of your customers sometimes is, they'll be like, hey, I have a 22 SI. What am I going to do with it? I have core value. We only have core value. Somebody will pay for it. You know what I mean? Our units are priced usually about where the other competitive products are once you turn in a core. So it only has value if somebody will pay for it. BLP series, we have brushless units that are competitive with the 34, 35, 36, 37 SI. Delco products. We have a great output at idle on these, 160, 185 amp. And probably some of the old Leece Neville style alternators, your 2500s, 2600s. We still have some of those products available. A lot of those products go back to this, because physical size are the same. 160 amp 555 is much more cost effective than 160 amp 2800. And then we have our 4000 series units, which are our high amp, 185 amp through 320 amp units for fire trucks, special needs school buses, regular any school bus nowadays. But all those special applications. And we have our new AVI units, dual internal fan units. They're smaller. They have a 210 amp T-mount unit for 4 diesel engines. And then we have standard J-mount and pad mount. And the 210 amp J-mount pad mount unit has 140 amps at idle. So it's a really good unit. And anything of ours on school buses over 185 amp is a 2-year warranty. So.
What's a T-mount?
Like Ford diesel engine, 7.3, 6.0, the 6.4.
The big bracket.
It's, I'll show you.
What's the warranty on the rest of this stuff, 1 year?
If it's got brushes, it's a 1 year. Our brushless is 3 year, 350. And then, like this T-mount is a 2-year warranty because it's generally, for these Ford diesel engines. Yep. Again, a lot of special needs school buses on these. Oh. Fire trucks, all those kind of things. Even you're gonna see a lot of them in the next couple days, where a guy's got a diesel plow truck running the light all day, the electric motor on the plows going up and down all day, and he's gonna have dead batteries. And this alternator's got 110 amps at idle, so it can keep up with the light on top, keep his radio going, his defroster's going, and his electric motor going. And you'll see here on this brochure, there is the top one here. It says 2008 and newer. It just comes with the mounting bolts. Let's see here. I'll just show everybody else. This one right here. Yep. AVI 160T2001-1. And then the one below it is that says for 2008 and newer. Then the one below it is 2002-2 is for 2008 and older. That applies to F series vehicles. the E-Series, if it's got a 6 liter, which the E-Series still has 6 liters, that's always the -2. Somebody asked you the difference between the -1 and the -2, it's the regulator. Ford likes to change things daily, but 2008 and newer, the regulator has to be able to talk to the engine control unit, and on the 2002 it works like a standard alternator with a voltage set at B+. And then the 2002-3 is for the LCF and City Star. Those low cab forward international small vehicles. They look like the little Isuzu things. So there's some of those running around, and those just so you're aware, they had a lot of issues with those on those alternators. Whatever alternator that came from the factory with those, they had a lot of problems with, and that's where ours went in.
The idea behind this would be to upgrade if you had one of those vehicles, correct?
Yes.
Because in other words, if the guy's got an electric plow, that vehicle didn't come from the factory setup to be able to do all that.
Even if it had, probably came with an upgrade. With a snowplow prep package usually comes with an upgraded alternator. Sometimes they have dual alternators. But even say like a truck came with a dual alternator system, and the top alternator is 110 amps. That's a total output of that alternator. This alternator does 100, so that probably means that alternator is probably, I'm gonna say like a 60 amp alternator at idle. This one does 110 amps at idle, 230 total output. So yeah, it's an upgrade from what they've gotten from the factory, regardless of what size alternator they had, because none of them really came with bigger alternators.
Can you replace that that original one with this the double alternator with this single?
You can. However, you want to make sure there's one alternator on top, there's one on the bottom,
Right.
and there's a belt configuration. Now, if you take off the bottom one, you'd have to change your belt.
Correct.
So what I tell people is you should have the bottom alternator working, there and working, at least so it can turn. In extreme situations, it may come on to recharge the batteries. It doesn't need to be, but then you can keep the factory stock belt.
Yep.
And that's.
Yep.
It's a lot easier than changing configuration. You put something down, you either got to put something there or change the belt configuration. And it's just, people don't want to do that, because then you can't go to AutoZone and grab another belt, or wherever you're going to go and grab another belt. Leaving on electric, right?
Thank you.
Auto and truck parts.
Well, I think usually when I talk to customers, don't take offenses. Most of my customers don't sell auto parts and truck parts. So if I make any more snafus like that, I sincerely apologize. Sorry. Okay, I'm going to go through a brief presentation on some of the Titan starters we have. I want to give this flyer out to you, because this is one of the ones that we, I believe we agreed to stock. And then we're going right up to the Class 8 type vehicles, big bore engines.
Now these again are all new?
All new. All new, no core.
Okay.
Okay. A few years ago we came out with a, what we call our Titan series of starter motors, and they're Titan 125, which is the flyer that you have here, and we also have a Titan 105, which is right there. And the original incarnation of this, I'll give you the flyer for that too, but the original one was for your Detroit 60 series, your Cat C15, C16, Cummins ISM, ISX engines, because those all took, they had an 11-tooth pinion, and basically, like your 42 MT, like your 1052, 1053, they would take all the applications those would take. So that covered about, I'm going to say like 75–80% of your marketplace. But there were some models that it lacked, like the MBE 4000 engine, required a noseless starter with a different pinion. Your Volvo, D12, D13, and your Mack MP8 required another starter that was noseless with a different pinion from that. So what we decided to hopefully order was the noseless versions for the MBE 4000, the Volvo version, and the nose version for the 11-tooth ISX. Actually, no, I just had to do the 3 noseless. because we came out with noseless for the ISX version as well. So you just have 3 different part numbers, okay? But these are, they're gear reduced starters. So a standard 42 MT weighs about 65 pounds. Our gear reduced starters weigh about 40 pounds. They're not quite as light as your Denso, your Mitsubishi, and your Delco. But those units are 5 and 6 kilowatt starter motors. Ours is an 8 kilowatt starter. Okay, so it's got a lot more cranking power for cold weather starts. You know, truck that's 20. We can start an ISX at -20. ISX is probably the hardest engine to start in the marketplace. Okay. Competitive products may have a little more difficulty in that kind of situation. And we market them toward, you know, may not be the cheapest unit, but they're made in the US and they can start vehicles all the time. You know, not just in 40-degree weather, but you know, around 0, minus, you can still start the engine. Okay?
That was the noseless and the nose interchangeable?
No. Well, in the ISX 11 tooth applications,
Yes.
they would be, unless it's a brand new truck. I think the 2010, 2011 ISX requires a noseless, 2011 probably, but you don't have any nose in stock.
We don't have noseless in stock.
I thought it would be easier when you started
Right.
to have the 3 different part numbers, just the 3 noseless part numbers. That way it eliminates confusion on which 11 tooth do I use the nose, the noseless. You just have one.
But they are not interchangeable.
Wholly and completely, every single truck in the world, no. But I mean, 90% of the trucks that took that opinion, 95%, yes, they would be, but not as an absolute, they wouldn't be. Okay, and there's, like I said, there's 3 of these part numbers for the 12 volts. And you'll actually see 5, okay? You'll see 5 in the second page. Right up on top, you see there's 5 part numbers there. The noseless version, the versions that you have are the middle 3. Okay? You guys are all picking them up. Yep. Okay. Those are the middle 3. Okay? And then there's application guides and cross references below and on the next page. And you'll see here, like on below, it gives you our part number here in blue, and then the units it replaces across. Okay? Save these because we don't print out. Supposed to stand in one spot. We don't print out a cross-reference book per se. So these flyers are the best cross-reference that you have. You're going to have, other than the website, which has all of it. Okay. And the other thing is, I heard you guys talking about phones. I mean, if you guys have phones with email on them or whatever, you know, you send me an email, I can forward that on to our tech service people. They can tell me what it is, I can send it back to you. You know, or you can call me when I'm driving. But sometimes I'm driving, I know you guys are driving, it's hard to write stuff down when you're driving, you know. I mean, we all learn how to do it. Anybody have any questions on the 105, the 125? Not right. Look, the best thing that's going to happen is we're going to talk about this, and then we'll go out and, you know, we'll do some field work and stuff like that, and real world applications will make this stuff make a lot more sense. Titan 105. This is for your medium duty trucks. Your DC, you know, 466, 530, 570.
Is that supposed to say 1.1 liter? That's pretty small, right?
11 liter.
Oh, it's 11, oh, okay, must be the reflection I'm seeing.
Yeah, up to 11 liter. Yep. I'll make sure I get that.
Sorry? Yeah, it's pretty more, yeah.
Yeah. Now, this, our 105 is a 5 kilowatt gear reduced starter motor, okay? And some of the competitive starters in this market, this is what they'll use for their big bore engines, you know, 13, 14, 15 liter engines. And like I said, you know, our philosophy on starters, we want the thing to work all the time, you know, not just in better weather. So we have these for only up to 11 liter, and I think we're going to approve a couple models for 12 liters on certain applications because some engines do start easier than others, you know. But these are 29 pounds. You see there's 5 part numbers here, but the second one in here has 2 part numbers with it. One's for over crank protection and one's without. That's one thing I did forget to mention with the previous starter, the 125. These have over crank protection standard and built in, and they're a 3-year warranty, 3 or 350 warranty on the 125. Do you everybody know what over crank protection is? Okay. It prevents a guy from using the starter to keep running the starter until it gets too hot and blows up.
Got like a circuit breaker in there or something?
Yep, when it does, just, when it goes, it gets to it, there's a temperature sensor in there. When it gets to a certain temperature, it shuts off the circuit, shuts the power off to it, and then it won't allow current to come back through to it
Till it cools.
till it cools down. Okay, and it's just so guys can't use the starter to bring the truck in the shop and stuff like that. Medium duty, you don't see over crank protection as much. That's why only this one model has it right now. The M105, you have a M105 602 is the regular version, and the 613 is the over crank version. But this M105 302 is going to be the one for your DT engines, the international trucks, and then the other ones you'll see your there's some cross-reference information on the back, but they're like for Cat C7s and ISLs, ICs, ISLs. There's some different Mac applications in there for those two, but they're basically your smaller liter engines. Okay, these are standard position with International Truck right now. Today, International trucks that they're making have this starter on it, the medium duty engines. Okay, so you'll see those out there. They're standard position there, and there's also the older ones that have our bigger starter on, our older bigger starter on that you can replace here. So there's a lot of good marketplace for this, the one part number for that, and there's stuff for the rest of them too. So there's a lot of C7s out there in those kind of applications. All right. Anybody have any? Oh, and all of these have a rotatable flange as well.
Clock.
You can clock them. With medium duty starters, because the other one, the bigger one, has a fully rotatable flange as well, and then larger engines, you have like I said, you have the 111 tooth that fit all these different engines, so clocking was a lot more important. These are a little more application specific, but you can still get this mag switch out of the way. You want to clock it back and forth and stuff like that. And like I said, 1-year warranty. The overcrank one is a 3-year warranty, and again, starters with school bus have a 2-year warranty. Okay, a little confusing, but school bus 2-year, overcrank 3-year, rest of it 1 year. Some of the stuff we went over, that's really in the brochure. Some of the cross-reference information there. Okay. If you don't see it on here, again with this stuff, send me a quick text, send me a quick email. If you're talking to a customer, Delco part number, Mitsubishi part number, Denso part number, send me that part number, I'll send you something back. Okay, or I'll at least have a question for you, because on C7s there's 2 of these that can fit C7s, depends on the transmission. We haven't put it in the flyer yet. We're working on putting that in the flyer so we know which transmission goes with which. But a lot of those things, that's where you find out. Really, we talked about this with the ring gear, with the brochure. One thing I'd like to mention, it is an inline design, so it fits right in, right out. Some of the other ones are offset gear reduced, they're harder to get in and out of the same spot. We did talk about the rotating flange. This has an integrated mag switch. A lot of the manufacturers ask all the starter manufacturers to put the mag switch on the starter, take it off the firewall. If it's on the firewall, that wire circuit comes down, and it used to go onto the solenoid on the ignition lead. It goes on the mag switch goes to the ignition lead, it runs the same. Okay, so you don't have to do anything there. Overcrank standard and built in, there's no plug. So if you sell it to a truck that doesn't have overcrank, it does with this starter. If you sell it on a truck that already has overcrank and has a wire that comes out, there's a dead end plug zip tied onto the starter. so they can plug that back in, so they don't have to cut off the connector, they don't have to change any wiring configuration on the truck. Because some people, and I would be one of them, would have a problem cutting plugs off $130,000 trucks, you know. And electrical soft start. Does everybody know what electrical soft start is? When you hit the key on a normal 42 MT, any normal, you know, standard kind of starter, the pinion comes out and spins as fast as it can. But what happens is sometimes the teeth, you get a click no start where the teeth don't mesh up, or it hits and mills on the ring gear. What this starter does, and to be honest with you, all the competitive Geardo starters have electrical soft start. When you hit the key, the pinion comes out slow and turns, and then goes up full speed. So it gets positive engagement with the ring gear, there's less chance of milling, there's less wear and tear on the ring gear and on the pinion. Okay? Do I have any questions about that? This chart is in the one flyer that you guys have. And it just shows how many, the nose, this was originally from the nose starter flyer, for the 125. Shows how many different applications that would fit. You know, there was a lot of that 11 tooth application that 125 would fit. Okay, talk about, let's see where the T-mount unit. We discussed this a little bit. Again, 2-year warranty. It is high temperature rated. It'll fit with the dual system. There's a lot of this stuff out there, and they're a little pricey, but they're a really good unit. And I think, you know, once somebody's been having some issues with it and they don't want to change it, especially like this thing is, everybody's had the hood up on one of them before and they've seen that.
It's a nightmare.
Oh, it's unreal.
And like bring that one into stock?
I don't remember what I know I told maybe ABIs, I think I told, yeah I did, I'm pretty sure. That's what I recommended. So, and I would assume that Jeff, the way Jeff and I talked about it, was something he was gonna bring it. Like I said, the mounting bolts come too, because it sits a little taller than the stock. There's a hardware kit for the international one, and the plug there, is because the 7.3s only have a 3G plug coming out of the engine. This has a 6G plug on it, so you don't have to do any wiring changes. You don't have to splice wires, do any configuration.